Today we're gonna be ranking your Hypixel Skyblock hot takes. I made a poll around 15 hours ago. We got 550 comments. I think how I'm gonna do this in terms of rankings is that I'm gonna start with a tier 1 hot take is alright, that's a reasonable take. Maybe not the majority of players have it, but a lot of people do. And then, you go down alright, that's a pretty hot take. I can imagine only a few people really believe that. And then, the hottest tier is, people who are Dungeons needs to be removed from the game immediately, or RNG is amazing and needs to be, perfect and added on to. Let's go with our first hot take. This was the #1, voted thing. And it's most of the Skyblock community cannot do anything without mods. And honestly, that's not a super hot take, but it's incredibly based. I don't know how I feel about that other than the fact that it's incredibly based, because the vast majority of the community is just super heavy on mods, They just want mods all the time for every single thing they do in the game. They can't do anything without mods. I don't even think that's really a hot take in some specific regards. You look at dungeons, and this is a cold take. Think about dungeons without mods. Unironically, crazy. But I imagine as we keep going down, we're gonna see more and more insane takes that are oh my gosh, how do you even believe this? So the next one is, we need more reason to use your island in the game. I think this is a surprisingly hot take. Even though a lot of people might agree with this, nobody really has a logical argument as to how that should be done. In my opinion, things like the minion personality update, which were talked about years ago in the 1.0 design threads, stuff like this should be in the game already. Alright, our next take is, it would be cool if each Slayer focused on one type of weapon, like Zombie for melee, Spider for mage, and Wolf for arch or something. I feel like this is a surprisingly hot take. I don't actually agree with this. I actually really like the way the current Slayers are set up. I like that Vampire Slayer is kind of like that, kind of in a manner like Dance Dance Revolution, where you're just going through a bunch of inputs and you have to, figure out what you have to do next. I feel this is a little bit, different. Also, if you're in chat and you're, chatting there, if you want to leave a hot take, you can leave it, on this poll, which is on my community page. This one's a surprisingly hot take. People are way too serious about this game. They often forget that it's just a game and you are supposed to have fun playing it. That is a hot take. A lot of people who play Skyblock are you need to be doing things in the most optimized way possible, or else you're just abysmal. I'm doing any content in this game, I get at least 4 or 5 commenters saying, here's how you can optimize and get that extra 2 seconds out of it. And I see the comment and I just don't care in my mind. I'm just I don't really care. The dark auction is completely broken, and the prices of everything in it will only continue to rise. I feel like that's kind of a cool take. I feel like most people agree with that, all things considered. And I personally agree, yeah, Dark Auction right now is not operating the way they want it to. They wanted to double the amount of stuff in there and double the amount of lobbies to make it easier to get a lot of the items, but they completely messed up in terms of the back-end code, and there isn't actually more Dark Auction lobbies, because the amount of lobbies doesn't scale with the amount of people trying to join the Dark Auction. It scales with the amount of people online. So if you don't change that code, and there's still 15,000 to 25,000 people online every day, there's still going to be the same amount of lobbies. They need to change that code around if they want that to actually operate the way that they intended to. Every single item that doesn't have a 1 out of 10 drop chance or lower should have an RNG meter. That's a hot take. That is an incredibly hot take, and dare I say it, it might be a little bit based, because I feel like a lot of what this game is built around is obviously RNG, but that wasn't really the intended design originally. The original design was you grind this material out for X amount of hours through minions, through whatever, you log on, you get your minions, and then boom, you can make an item. That's totally different. Getting ratted or hacked is an important life lesson and can help you quit this addiction we call Skyblock. That's a hot take because I don't really believe that it's an important life lesson. I believe it can be eradicated without anyone having to go through it. I think it's a problem of Mojang, Microsoft, really poor on their ends in terms of like security. Account security is really bad, and people are way too trusting of mods. Once again, that could be because Skyblock is built so heavily around mods. I think that's a pretty hot take though. Only half of a hot take because some agree, but the Rift Dimension is literally peak Skyblock. Based, not very much of a hot take though. I feel like a lot of the community agrees with this. Hypixel Skyblock needs to stop appealing to the late and end game experience and focus on getting new players into the game. Skyblock will prevent the steady decline of its player count not through unsuccessful attempts to retain current players, but by earning new ones, an element which the game sorely struggles with right now. Vanta, that is a hot take, but it is based. That is a very good take. We got some replies to this. A lot of big replies, you know, oh, they've tried it, rarely has it ever been good. I disagree. I think they haven't tried hard enough. I think the biggest problem is that there isn't very much, like, quest content in the game at the moment, you know? I feel like the game could utilize a lot more quest content. Stuff like, even when the game first came out, you know, you had the Pig's Foot stuff. You had the stuff with Romero and Joliet, or whatever her name was. You had the stuff with, you know, the Campfire Badge. You had all these like little mini quest lines. Even more recently, you had like Jake's Plushie. I think all of those are great additions, and I think that they should focus much more on adding quest content for this stuff for newer players. You know, explore what the world is. Why does the world exist the way that it does in Skyblock? Get people in the door, get them hooked on the idea of Skyblock as like lore-based, as an MMO, as stuff like that, and then those RPG elements will start, you know, slotting into place as they keep going. I really do think the current intro of Skyblock is incredibly poor, but like that's not a hot take. Calazar made a video on this like, what, 10 days ago, and it has like 60k views, so he very much, you know, got the nail on the head with that. Fishing is fun after level 36. I'm not there yet, so I can't really answer too much on this, but from what I've heard from a lot of people, this is actually a pretty cool take. Like, from people above level 36 in fishing, which, like, survivorship bias, I know, I'm, like, showing the plane on the screen with all the bullet holes in it. It's like, yeah, once you get to that high level fishing, it's actually more enjoyable. They're making changes soon to fishing. They're making it so, like, a lot of the sea creatures have less health. And I think that that will very much make it even better for those players. So, yeah, this is not really a hot take. Alright, I think this is more a common opinion at this point, but Iron Man is superior to normal in 9 out of 10 ways. I disagree. This is a hot take. I love the market aspect of Skyblock. I love the bazaar. I love the fact that there's like a literal stock system in the game when it comes to commodities. I don't really think Iron Man is superior in like many ways at all. And I'm gonna be honest, sometimes Iron Man players make a lot of complaints about the game. A lot of them are valid, like, don't get me wrong. I think things like Alloy and Shattered Locket don't need to be the way that they are, but there's also been other times where they're complaining about something and I'm looking at it and I'm like, alright, this is just because you picked a harder mode and you're upset now that the mode is harder. For example, there were a lot of Iron Man players who were like upset that the booster cookie price matches like non-Iron Man players, so that they should have like a booster cookie that's like 5 mil tops and it should stay that way forever. And I just disagree. I'm sorry. Like, they have to make money somehow. They can't just do that. Speaking of hottest take in the world though, look at this. As an Iron Man, I prefer the process of getting the Shattered Locket over Devon's Alloy. That is an insanely hot take in my mind, because I think that Alloy is, like, comically more enjoyable to get than Shattered Locket, which is literally just like, okay, now I have to go to the forge. Now I have to forge for a day. And then I have to go into a mine shaft, and now I have to just, like, RNG pull this thing. Like, that's such a hot take. I disagree with you completely. I think that Shattered Locket is literally just a glorified, like, slot machine. I think it has no benefits in being in the game at all. I would much prefer if Locket were just tied to, like, quests or something, you know? It's more fun to play dungeons without a secret finder. I mean, that's true, I don't know how much of a hot take that is. I think most people agree that that is the case. I think the reason that people use Secret Finder is because the game has become so optimized that people feel like they're wasting their party's time if they're not using that, you know? I get it's an MMO, but it really sucks how much time you have to sink in to access the best content. To be honest, the only reason I still play is because I'm so close, and many of the hours were during COVID when I couldn't do much else. It's not the hottest take in the world. I think that a lot of people agree that like they wish they could access the, the best, most fun content a little bit earlier on. I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, like people are going to say, if you're endgame, you deserve to have the most fun, but I don't know how much I agree with that personally. Booster cookies need to be capped for Iron Man and Stranded. Hard disagree, hot take immediately. This is kind of the thing that I was talking about. Like, if you are an Iron Man player, if you are a Stranded player, I hate to break it to you, you chose the harder game mode. You should deal with things being harder. Making Iron Man specific changes shouldn't be off the table. The game mode needs some changes, especially with how expensive Dark Auction and Shen's Auction items are. That is fair, though. I agree that, like, for Dark Auction, for Shen's Auction, they should not be competing with regular mode players, because all it does is hurt both sides. Iron Man players have money to burn, and they have nothing else to spend money on except for these items, so they're raising the prices for regular players who would otherwise, go for them. This is an example of a really good Iron Man take. I think Iron Man specific changes should be on the table. They should have a separate Dark Auction. They should have a separate Shen's Auction. The game should not be reliant at all on third-party mods. Hypixel should either create their own client with approved help mods, partner with existing clients, or should implement all the popular mods as features and disallow any other mods. Based, dare I say it, based, but also they'll never do this, and also that's a very hot take. It's also not doable. Yeah, it's not doable at all. Oh, here's a hot take. Dungeons as a whole ruined Skyblock. It took until the Crimson Isles for non-dungeon items to be on par with dungeon items, and that's still locked behind infernal tier armor. And don't even get me started on the Hyperion. Even after being nerfed so many times, it's one of the most broken weapons in the entire game. This is just item balance we're talking about, the effects of dungeons on updates. The severe lack of updates before dungeons came out was frustrating but understandable, as we hadn't seen how broken the updates would get. For the first 6 floors, everything was decently balanced, and then F7 happened with Hyperion and Necron armor. All of this for dungeons to become the main source of updates for the next 2-ish years. IMO, this is unacceptable, since there should be other parts of the game that need to be updated more than adding a floor on dungeons or master mode. This is a hot take, but I really disagree with it. And I'm saying this as someone who doesn't really love to do dungeons. Number 1. Dungeons as a whole ruined Skyblock. It took until the Crimson Isles for non-dungeon items to be on par with dungeon items. Counterpoint. Do you, as a player, need to use any dungeon items in non-dungeons content until the Crimson Isles? Do you need to use it? Like, do you really need to? I don't think so. There is a lot of situations back in those early parts of the game where you really don't need dungeon items, like pre-Crimson Isles. Like, what do you really need them for? Everybody focuses way too much on playing optimally and sweating the game. Unless you're doing something team-based at a high level, like Kata 50 M7 or Sweaty Infernal Kudra, it really shouldn't matter to you if somebody else is using the best gear, or focusing on the right things, or spending their money how you think they should. I feel like a lot of people forget that they play to have fun and treat Skyblock like their job, and spend their time critiquing other people's play instead of enjoying the game. Based.
That's so real.
Incredibly based hot take right there. I agree with that 100%. That is so true. If you are not in endgame content, if you are not doing team-based content, who cares? Who cares? I don't care. I don't care that I can switch my loadout on Blaze to get 0.3 seconds back. I see it. I know I can do it. Don't care. Don't care in the slightest. Like, let me look up that information. If I want to figure that out, you don't need to tell me 30 times and call me trash if I'm not doing it. I just don't care. Obviously, there are lots of QOL things, but I believe that they will develop with time. I think the biggest things that need an overhaul at the moment are skill-based quests like Dojo, Harp, and Mirrorverse. I like the idea of them, but servers are too laggy to handle them, and they're not fun. I will not tolerate any Mirrorverse Slayer, or not Slayer, Mirrorverse slander, rather, hate on my, YouTube channel. This is unreal. That's a hot take. I think Dojo's fine. I think Harp is not the greatest. I think Mirrorverse is great, though. Jade, how do you feel about Mirrorverse?
I really enjoyed Mirrorverse. I don't know. But it feels like what they're saying is that ping needs to be fixed, which people kind of agree.
But, I don't really know, what in the Mirrorverse really, is ping, laggy.
Uh, Tiny Dancer, but that's about it.
Tiny Dancer?
It,
If you're really that caught up on Tiny Dancer, I don't have Tiny Dancer. I'm not worried about it. Admins should fix the cookie costing 13 mil. They should not. That is supply and demand. If you want to fix the cost being 13 mil, what you do is you go to the Hypixel store, you buy $100 worth of gems, and then you type in code RAIL. Make sure you use code RAIL on the Hypixel store, and then boom, you're chilling.
so I think this is something we actually disagree with. I do think cookies should be capped.
Really? Just in general or just for Iron
Because
Man?
there's something... No, in general.
Oh, interesting.
Because they're like basically necessity, right?
Yeah.
You kind of need them, and them being like comically expensive, I think is absurd.
See, I disagree because I feel like the price, ironically enough, is fair for how easy it is to get money nowadays. I would say, unironically, it was harder to get the money together before Garden for cookies, because cookies were around 6-7 mil back then, and pre-Garden, and if you didn't have a good mining setup, you were cooked. And all the way back when they first came out, they were around 1 million coins, and that was not the easiest thing to get, and they quickly rose to 3 mil. So I don't know, 13 mil is not that expensive. If a grind or RNG takes more than 6 IRL months at best efficiency and odds, its chance should be buffed, or any way of reducing that grind should be implemented. I mean, yeah. I don't think there's many things like that currently in the game. I think you're referring to Original Locket, and they changed that, which is good. I think they should have made Locket have an RNG meter or made it part of a quest line, but they don't want to do that, so what can you do? And that just leads to the situation of everybody who's gotten Locket is actually, this is the best system in the game because they got lucky, and then everyone else is man, this sucks. So, I don't know. Game needs a storyline that actively guides you on what you should do from early game to end game. Hot take,
I
based. That is so based. I agree. Booster cookies should receive a full rework, and God pots are too OP. No. In reality, I think booster cookies are fine. I don't really have a problem with them as they exist currently. I think God potions are too overpowered at the moment. My hot take about what they should do with God potion is take a lot of those stats, because they build content with those stats in mind already, and just add them to the base player. Just add them to the player. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't even care. At Skyblock level 5, give them the ability to, add a lot of those stats to just their base character and not even think about it. And make, God potions only, the mix-ins and a couple of, other ones. Maybe, Magic Find and stuff like that. People should try the other Hyperion variants because they allow other fun methods to play besides insta-kill. Yeah. This is a hotter take.
Well,
Estrella is by far the best hype variant. That's crazy. Estrella is the best hype variant. All items obtained from in-game auctions, Shen's, Dark Auction, should be soulbound. That's a hot take. I kind of agree. I think it should be co-op soulbound and not soulbound, but yeah. That should absolutely be the case. That's hot take, but a good take. Unless you're top 500, you should not be worrying about how fast you get XP whenever a new update drops, and instead you should focus on actually enjoying and playing the content. The amount of level 120s I saw complaining about Divine Rabbits giving XP as if it would actually affect the time it would take for them to get max XP is wild. Okay, you had me until that last sentence. The reason why level 120s care and are upset about Divine Rabbits is because Divine Rabbits are just not good in terms of game design. people don't care that they're not going to get max XP from that, but they are in solidarity with the people who are like level 420, level 430, 440, who do have to deal with the grind, and it sucks. And they want the content to be better. Admins need to be more lenient on certain sets being the best in their category. Primal Dragon Armor is the perfect example of this. It would have been real nice for Primal Armor to be better than Necron in Dungeons, since it's going to be a multi-billion coin set, but the admins just want Necron to stay the best dungeon set. 15-star Crimson was the only set better than Primal Dragon, and that made sense since 15-star Crimson is probably going to stay more expensive than Primal Dragon Armor. Because this Primal Dragon is useless useless since Necron is better in dungeons and Crimson is better for Slayers. Dare I say it? Based. So, there were a lot of people who were like, actually, Primal Dragon Armor shouldn't be better than Crimson, or not Crimson, Necron in dungeons, because, you know, Primal Dragon isn't actually, you know, a dungeon set. Counterpoint, what are those weird little dragon adventures doing in dungeons then? Counterpoint number 2, why can you use, like, all of the dragon sets in dungeons? That's such like a not serious take. Also, Necron's so old at this point. It's been in the game for years. It's fine if a multi-billion coin set outclasses it. Also, they were like, well, actually, you know, it shouldn't be the best thing. You know, the best bow or best sword shouldn't be from outside of dungeons. Counterpoint, what's a Terminator doing in dungeons? Like, counterpoint, where do you get Terminator? Like really think about that.
They just don't want to have to invest in new, better stuff.
Like, come on now. Whenever I hear that take, I always think about Terminator, and I always think about the fact that dragons are already, like, very much in dungeons already. Attribute system is a massive step forward and will allow multiple builds to be viable rather than one meta set. Based, but also hot take. Master mode was unnecessary for the catacombs. Instead, a separate, more advanced dungeon for endgame players should have been created. Master mode was dull and lacked significant new content until M7 Phase 5, which alone did not meet our initial expectations for Master mode when it was first announced. Wow. That's a take. That's a hot take. I don't know if I agree with that or not, though. Anyone who isn't a YouTuber and has a life can't keep up with the updates. Oof. Oof. That's a hot take. That's a crazy hot take. Worst things in Skyblock are bingo, slayers, and dungeons. Oof.
Okay, I feel like this guy is just trolling.
There's no way that's real. I actually think he's serious about this take, because this is actually a hot take. But this is a scathing hot take. Probably the hottest take I've seen. And I disagree completely. I think the best things in Skyblock in order are number 1, slayers, number 2, dungeons, and things like bingo are up there too. So, yeah, I don't know. Bingo is really fun.
Interesting.
Items from dungeons should be usable only inside dungeons. That's a crazy hot take. What, no hype? No hype, though.
I would say I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, I think that's completely a terrible take.
Isolate one part of the game from the rest of the game.
So, like, the only way I could see that be logical is if dungeons were meant to be a roguelike, but they're not. Like, they were designed specifically to have the items be that way. Like, listen, if the admins made a second dungeon and made it with that being the intent, that you could only use the items inside dungeons, then yeah, that's fine.
You could gain, like, XP or something.
Yeah. The reason the game is declining in popularity is 100% the community's fault, not the staff teams. That's a crazy hot take. I disagree. First of all, if you look from an objective standpoint, the game has been pretty stable in terms of player count over the last year. Dungeons were a mistake to release as part of Skyblock. The amount of dungeon gear and content is enough for it to be its own game mode on Hypixel. I disagree. Why would... Okay. If it were its own separate game mode, like, entirely separated, why would people play it? Like, really think about that, you know? If it didn't have the rest of Skyblock attached to it, didn't have the rest of the content, I think most people would get bored. Like, why would you actually play it for hours and hours and hours?
So, let's assume it's completely different, right? It's a different game mode. Where's the fun in mixing up your armor? Where's the challenge in getting better stuff and continuing to like play the higher floors? Because there's no outside experience.
Yeah, it's just the dungeon hub and
they give you.
dungeons. The economy would be worse
kind of
without
based.
dupers. Dare I say it? Perhaps a little based. I know cheating and duping, obviously terrible, no one should do it. But, I mean, look at things like the Great Gemstone Massacre of, like, 2022 or whatever. Lowered the price of a few things. Kind of
Everyone say
based.
thank you, Buckles.
Thank you, Buckles. Everyone say thank you, Buckles in chat. Party Finder sucks. Secrets suck. F7 terminals suck. Call me skill issued all you want. You know, I'm not going to call you skill issued. I think terminals and F7 are pretty bad. I think they're objectively terrible. They're not particularly fun, and they kind of require mods to, like, do with any amount of efficiency at all. Party Finder does kind of suck. I think secrets are fine. I think secrets were made for when Dungeons was very much a different type of game mode or activity. And now it's much more optimized, and they haven't really made that leap for most people. So, yeah. The jump from Tier 2 to Tier 3 Enderman is too far. Also, all players who don't live in North America should get the Melody's hair for free. I disagree with your latter half of that. I know it's a ping issue, but, like, you can get Melody's hair. It's not that bad. I think the jump from Tier 2 to Tier 3 Enderman is pretty steep. And
I agree with that.
It's a steep jump. It's not an impossible jump. It takes time. You know, it's E-Man. I don't know. My thought process is, like, E-Man is not meant to be the hardest Slayer anymore. You know, Blaze is meant to be harder, and if they're adding another one with, like, the Foraging update, that one will probably be meant to be harder. I personally wouldn't mind if they brought Tier 3 down a little bit, if they left Tier 4 untouched, but at the same time, I think it's just like a, you know, a learning curve, and you have to learn it. There's better MMOs to waste your time on. Destiny 2 enjoyers. You've ruined this take, though, when you said old school RuneScape, because old school RuneScape, my hottest take of the day, old school RuneScape, completely ass. I'm sorry, I don't get the appeal. It's just, its numbers going up. You might as well play Cookie Clicker, bro. It's not fun. I actually want Skyblock to be less like RuneScape over time, because RuneScape, not fun at all in my opinion. I don't care if I get 1 million comments crucifying me. Don't care. RuneScape is not enjoyable in the slightest. It's literally just Cookie Clicker. Macroing should be legal. Hold on, I want to see this take. Macroing should be legal. Hear me out. People macro stuff because that grind or part sucks to do. I understand the economy would go kablooey, but it'd be fun, trust. Edit chat, I don't macro, please trust. That's crazy.
I think part of their argument is fine. Like, if people are macroing it, obviously it's stupid. But also, why are you even playing?
That, I'm not even gonna lie. Very hot take. When I see Garden, though, I understand why people macro. I know you shouldn't do it. I know it's not good. I know it's bad for the game's economy. I know it's against the rules. I don't condone it. I think it's bad. But I understand the logic behind why people do it. I get it. I get the reasoning why. Because Garden is not content. My hot take of the day is that the worst thing that they've ever added to Skyblock was Garden. Garden, no gameplay, complete ass. You're sitting for 700 hours doing nothing. Like, it's not fun. At all. It's so bad. I'm sorry. Crop milestones, get rid of them. Copper, get rid of it. It's terrible. It's so boring. Add a warp tax that scales with Skyblock level. Holy, that's a hot take. What are you, Dante, bro? Get real. They should really remove all the cheese spots inside the smoldering tomb. This is a hot take, but as somebody who has, on many cases, gone to those cheese spots, I completely agree with you. I think they should get rid of all the cheese spots too. I think you should be required to do it on the floor. And you know why I think that? Because if they did that, the profits that would be made for people like me who can actually do it on the floor relatively consistently would shoot through the moon. I'd be making 3 times the amount of money. They should absolutely remove all those cheese spots.
That's a ridiculous reason.
Hot take, Hypixel needs to bring back the old Crimson Isle and make the new one and new island to visit. The fact that new players can't unlock Blaze Rod and Gas Tier Collection is crazy to me. This change wouldn't change anything to players already in the Crimson Isle, other than making them travel to one more island to get to the new one, so I know this part may be me reaching, but bring back the old Magma boss on the Combat 5 island. This is a hot take. I actually agree with him. I think that the jump between the end and Crimson Isle is pretty steep, and I think that like having the Blazing Fortress previously there as like a level like 10, level 12, you know, lower tier area for those basic end stuff was really nice, you know. I really liked that, and I don't like how now there's just such a huge gap before you're able to get to that content. So yeah, I think that's a good take. I don't think that would be adding a new island that's completely useless, too, because, you know, it would be a place to congregate for lower-level players, and they'd be able to interact there. It's not like people nowadays are like, we need to get rid of the gold mine and just have you go directly to the deep caverns, you know? Yeah, I think that is about it for today. Yeah, I feel like we got through a lot of them, and we've covered kind of the most interesting parts of a lot of different parts of Skyblock. So this was really good. Thank you guys for being very fun and cordial and chilling, and I feel like we got a lot done today. What do you have to say, Jade, to the people?
I don't know. Play the game.
Play the game. Jade, you know what you have to do? You have to log on and do your enchanting minigame right now.
No.
Alrighty. Have a great day, everybody, and thank you guys so much for watching. If you're on YouTube, look to the future, fellas. I'll see you then.